Welcome to Kitchen Sink Dharma. So I've been reading a book about the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus. And on the surface, it looks like Epicurus was teaching something that's kind of the opposite of Buddhism. He was someone who believed in the pursuit of pleasure. But actually there's misconceptions about Epicureanism. And people wrongly associate him with the idea of getting drunk and eating lots of luxurious food. But actually that's not the kind of pleasure that he was interested in. Because for Epicurus, pleasure meant living a simple life. And what he really valued were qualities like moderation and friendship and community and the pursuit of knowledge. And for him, the highest happiness was freedom from anxiety. And he didn't have a great deal of interest in acquiring wealth and possessions. An awful lot of what he taught actually maps on to Buddhist teachings quite well. So there's a line in the Metta Sutta, which is the Buddhist teaching on, or one of the Buddhist teachings on kindness and friendliness, which talks about being unburdened by duties and frugal in their ways. So according to the Metta Sutta, somebody who's skilled in goodness and knows the path of peace is unburdened by duties and frugal in their ways. And when I first came across this line, it really resonated for me because it spoke to me about living a simpler life, because there was so much drama in my life at the time. And of course there is generally a lot of drama in our lives, and an awful lot of it seems to be unavoidable. But some of it we can actually do something about. And again, going back to Epicurus, he spoke about how freedom from unnecessary things also frees us from fear and worry and regret and the whole burden of expectations. And it was like, as Charles Bukowski said, the less I needed, the better I felt. The less I needed, the better I felt. So in Buddhist teachings, freedom from remorse and anxiety are really important precursors to tranquility. And tranquility is very highly valued. It's one of the factors of awakening. And we're taught that all of the mental states that stop us meditating and scatter our attention, known as the hindrance factors, that they've all got agitation at their core. And that there's no real concentration without calm. So unless we can find at least some moments of quiet, it's very hard to make any progress on the path. We need to leave some space for ourselves. And of course that sounds a lot easier than it actually is. And it raises the question, where do we start? So sitting, meditating regularly helps, and I'll come on and talk a little bit more about that. But we also know cultivating tranquility doesn't just mean formal meditation. And there's countless opportunities throughout the day for practicing calm, for practicing tranquility. Liberating this moment isn't something that has to wait until we're sitting on a cushion. Now Thich Nhat Hanh said, whatever the tasks, do them slowly with ease, in mindfulness. So do not do any tasks with the goal of just getting them over with. Resolve to do each job in a relaxed way with all your attention. Tranquility isn't about not doing anything. It's not about lack of action. It might be about doing less sometimes, but it's more about how we do things. It's maybe about being present in the midst of all things and knowing at any time whether we're feeding our agitation or whether we're calming our agitation. And when we are agitated, bringing some kindness and compassion to the mind and the body, and responding to our restlessness and our worry and our remorse in the way that we would to, say, a beloved friend. Now, we can't just one day decide that life's going to be simpler and calmer in the future. It doesn't just happen like that. It's just another fantasy. That's the fantasy that's going to take us straight out of the present moment. We actually have to work for our freedom. So rather than pushing away the agitation or feeling bad about it or judging ourselves for it, we're just cultivating the conditions for it to start to calm down, for it to start to fall away. And I don't think it's that easy to change the external conditions of our lives, certainly not quickly. And we tend to be drawn towards drama. And being busy can serve a function for us. It can make us feel important. Intensity can generate a sense of aliveness. And it can give us a sense of mission. But that drama can also be exhausting. And maybe letting go of it can be frightening sometimes. And I think sometimes we're perhaps frightened that without the drama, we're no one. Who are we without our drama? That's one of the reasons why I think it's so hard to relinquish it. Or if we're feeling insecure and vulnerable, our minds often create drama. They just dive into the past or they dive into the future. And they're trying to find some kind of controls, trying to find some certainty and some safety. Now, there's a Zen saying that the only truth you find on top of the mountain is the truth that you brought with you. We have to be careful not to bring our habits of complicating things into our practice, because agitation can be present in the smallest of ways. We're constantly trying to fix things and adjust things and get rid of things, and it can be like an undercurrent. And it's there when there's nothing actually grabbing our attention. We're immediately tempted to create something, to create a drama. So we reach for our phone or we distract ourselves some other way. And mindfulness helps us to be aware when we're doing this. Mindfulness actually offers us a viable alternative. Mindfulness helps us to become disenchanted with our dramas and with our reactions. And it's only then that we can begin to relinquish them. So mindfulness helps us actually to learn to value stillness. And then we can start to make peace with ourselves. And we can also develop some skill in calming ourselves, and regulating our emotions. For example, we can use just a few mindful breaths or a couple of minutes breathing space. And we can ground ourselves in the body. Even when we're having a difficult time, we can actually just sense into the sensations in the body. If we can do this with the small moment-to-moment things that happen in our lives, then we're much better equipped for when the bigger challenge is happening. We've got something there, we've got something in place. So this is very much not about eliminating difficult emotions. It's about being able to meet them. Maybe being able to meet them without an extra layer of suffering coming up. Because life is always going to be challenging. And we discover peace and happiness, not by escaping our lives, but just by reorienting ourselves, turning towards mindfulness, towards friendliness and compassion, and doing it over and over again until it's naturalized. So it's possible to reshape our priorities in that way and to become less dependent on external sources of happiness. This is a happiness that comes from inside us. And that way we can meet the world from a much more secure and stable place. So in the last episode, I related a couple of Nasruddin stories, which is from the Sufi tradition. And you might remember that Mullah Nasruddin features in a number of tales. And he's a sage. He's sometimes wise and he's sometimes foolish, and sometimes both. So here's another Nasruddin story. Nasruddin, considered to be a wise man, did not have much money. He lived on a spare diet of chickpeas and rice. His neighbour, also considered to be a wise man, was quite wealthy and ate sumptuously. Seeing Nasruddin's plight, the wealthy neighbour offered Nasruddin these words of advice. If only you could learn to flatter and be subservient to the king, you would not have to live on chickpeas and rice. And Nasruddin looked at him kindly and said, and if only you could learn to live on chickpeas and rice, you wouldn't have to flatter and be subservient to the king. So to me, this is about how Nasruddin is free. His priorities mean that he's free. He doesn't have to compromise himself. And neither do we, because we can find a way to do the same thing if we want to. We don't have to look for any external evidence of our worth. It's already there. And this is something the Thai forest tradition of Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Sumedho, it's Thai Buddhism, it's based around this idea. And the emphasis in that lineage is on a simple way of life. It's about renunciation as a practice. And they don't particularly emphasize study or intellectual debate. The whole aim is to live with simplicity, to live with ease. And there's one other thing I want to mention, which is the importance of valuing the ordinary, and valuing and loving just the ordinary moments in our lives. Not every moment has to be dramatic and intense. We don't have to be swimming with dolphins every day. It's just about the ordinary stuff. I'm going to read out something that Christina Feldman wrote. She's a teacher in the Insight tradition. And she writes, there is so much in our life which is simply ordinary, neither exciting nor disturbing. Trees grow, birds fly, the sun shines, the rain falls. We go from morning to night, breathing, walking, and moving through our day, meeting countless moments, people and events that we may barely notice. Within the ordinary, the tendency is to disconnect, at times feel these moments are undeserving of our attention. In reality, the ordinary moments in our life are doorways to a deeper wisdom, discovering the richness and vitality that live within our own hearts, and a profound connection to life just as it is. So that was from Christina Feldman. And you may already know how to access that richness and that sense of simple joy. But if it feels like that's something that's missing in your life, then one powerful way to achieve a calmer, more collected mind is meditation. And one way that we start with this is to rest attention on the breath. You could maybe start with the movement within the abdomen and the chest, and then move on to the sensations around the nostrils. Just staying with that single point of sensation, just the tickle of air moving across the entrance of the nostrils. And you don't have to conceptualize anything. You just stay with the feelings, you just stay with the flow of breath. I know some people find counting the breath helpful, and personally I don't find that a particularly helpful practice, but some people do. Maybe at the end of each out-breath, you can just empty the mind and be consciously letting it be blank and silent. And you might find this has a calming effect. Or you might notice how much your thoughts are constantly arising and how little control you have over your mind. You'll probably experience both of those things actually at different times. And the trick is to hold whatever comes up, whatever happens, whatever your experience is, just to hold it lightly. And it helps actually to join a meditation group if you haven't already done that. But if you're having a hard time now, I really recommend just making some space for some quality time by yourself sometimes, not feeling you have to stay on top of all the drama and the news and everything all the time. Maybe just taking a break sometimes. Maybe taking a break from ordering stuff online or thinking about work. Actually, at least once a day, just finding a time when you can let go of all of that and just simply hold yourself in kind and steady awareness. So thank you for listening. That's it for this week's episode of Kitchen Sink Dharma. Hope you can join me again next week.